Welcome to Broken Hearts of Reddit. Get ready to hear a story of betrayal that will chill you to the bone. This is the story of how one day, after 20 years of a happy marriage, my wife looked me in the eyes and said she had never loved me. She said that for all those years, she had been with me out of pity, for the money, and because she didn't want to be alone. And it was true. But there was another, more terrible truth that she had been hiding. My wife had been living a double life, and I found out about it too late. I learned of her betrayal, of her secret world, when our life had already crumbled into dust. Our house on the outskirts of Boston had always been a sanctuary of peace. I, David, was an engineer, and my life was scheduled down to the minute. Work, the gym, dinner with my wife Elizabeth and our children, Matthew and Sophia, and then reading a book and sleep. Elizabeth taught history at a local school. She was my anchor, my one reliable shore in this turbulent world. We had met back in college. I was a shy nerd then, and she was a star, the life of the party. I couldn't believe my luck when she agreed to go on a date with me, and then chose me from dozens of her admirers. For all 20 years of our life together, I thanked God for that gift. In the mornings, I would leave first, quietly kissing Elizabeth on the cheek so as not to wake her. She would always wake up, smile at me, and I knew our world was okay. After work, I would return home to the smell of a fresh dinner and a warm embrace. On weekends, our whole family would go to the park or drive to the lake or just stay home and play board games. I never doubted her loyalty, her love. I couldn't doubt it. She was my Elizabeth. But lately, I had started to notice strange little things that I initially chalked up to fatigue, to stress. Her laugh, usually bright and open, became somehow nervous, as if she were laughing not from the heart, but just out of habit. She started staying late at work more often, explaining it with checks and reports. I didn't pay much attention to it. Something was always changing in her work, and I trusted her. A shadow appeared on her face, a tiredness that didn't go away even after the weekend. One evening, after we had gone to bed, I woke up to her strange mumbling. She wasn't speaking, but rather whispering something, curled up in a ball. I couldn't make out the words, but I heard some kind of plea, anxiety, and desperation in her voice. I cautiously put my arms around her, and she immediately fell silent. Her body was tense. She quickly calmed down and fell asleep, but I couldn't sleep for a long time, trying to understand what that was. It was as if she was afraid of me, or of someone else. As if she wasn't my Elizabeth. The next day, I asked her again what was bothering her. She replied that she was tired of work, that the children had grown up, and her life had become somewhat monotonous. I couldn't believe my ears. She, who had always talked so enthusiastically about her lessons, about the children, about our plans for the future. She, who loved her home so much, started saying she was tired. My heart twinged. But I quickly dismissed the thought. Just a midlife crisis, I thought. Just fatigue. Just needs more attention and love. I started giving her gifts, telling her how much I loved her, planning romantic weekends. But her eyes, which used to light up with happiness, remained dull. I saw not joy in them, but some kind of pain, some kind of silent despair. It was the first crack in our perfect world, a crack that I didn't want to see, a crack that was slowly, but surely, destroying everything I had built. The strange things began to pile up like a snowball, and each new detail left me with not just doubt, but a burning, unpleasant residue. It was as if I was finding more and more strokes of a foreign, incompatible paint in the flawless picture of our life, as I had seen it. One evening, while sorting through bills, I came across a dry cleaning receipt. Elizabeth usually dropped off the clothes herself, and I never delved into these details. But this time, something caught my attention. The receipt listed a men's coat, an expensive wool one, with the note, German fabric. I knew Elizabeth sometimes helped her brother, who lived alone and wasn't very tidy, but he always wore cheap jackets, and he never owned a coat. I didn't ask her that evening. I just put the receipt back in its place, and some ridiculous thought, which I didn't want to articulate, was already swirling in my head. The next day, I decided to stop by Elizabeth's work to have lunch together. It was an old ritual of ours that we had stopped observing when she started staying late. I wanted to revive it, wanted to get back the closeness that I felt was slipping away. I arrived at the school and saw her car in the parking lot. I was about to text her, but then I saw her coming out of the school not alone. A tall, elegant man was walking beside her, helping her carry a stack of books. He was laughing, and she, my Elizabeth, whom I knew to be reserved and even a little shy, was laughing back so brightly and carefree as she hadn't for many months. She suddenly stopped and ran her hand over his forearm, lingering for a moment. That gesture, so casual and intimate, squeezed my heart. I sat in the car, unable to move, and watched this scene that seemed unreal to me. Then they said goodbye, and the man walked to his car, while Elizabeth went to hers. She got in the car, but sat there for another minute, looking out the window, and there was such a peacefulness, such a softness on her face, that it became unbearable. I started my car and drove away, never meeting her. Then there were other little things. She started buying expensive perfume, new dresses that I had never seen her wear. She said it was for work, for school events, but I didn't believe it. I saw that she was trying to be attractive, not for me, not for us, but for someone else. I saw that her eyes, which used to shine with joy when she saw me, now only glimmered faintly, like two extinguished coals. One weekend, while Elizabeth was shopping, as she told me, I decided to clean our shared study. Her desk was there, which was always in perfect order, but I noticed that something had changed in one of the boxes with her old things. I had never been a person to snoop on my wife, but this time I couldn't resist. I opened the box and saw an envelope. Inside were several photos. In one of them, Elizabeth was with the same man I had seen at the school. They were sitting in a cafe, their hands on the table, almost touching. In another photo, they were standing in front of an old building. He had his arm around her waist, and she had her head gently resting on his shoulder. The same softness was on her face that I had seen at the school. In that moment, I understood everything. I understood that he was not just a colleague, not just a friend. It was something more. My heart pounded, and a wave of icy horror went through my body. I couldn't breathe. I held these photos in my hands, these proofs of her betrayal, and the world around me was collapsing. I felt nothing but emptiness. It was the end of our perfect life, as I had seen it. I didn't want to believe it, but these photos were undeniable proof. They told me that my Elizabeth, my love, my only anchor, had betrayed me, and I didn't know what to do. I couldn't get the photos out of my head. They became ghosts that haunted me, turning every day into torture. I felt like a stranger in my own home, a stranger next to Elizabeth, whom I loved, but in whom I now saw a completely unfamiliar person. I started watching her carefully, like a detective, looking for the smallest clues that could explain her double life. I wanted to understand why she had done this, why she had betrayed me so cruelly. One evening, after the children were asleep, I decided to talk to her. I wanted to give her a chance to explain, wanted to hear the truth from her own lips. I sat in the living room, holding those very photos, and she, suspecting nothing, was reading a book. I walked up to her, placed the photos on the table in front of her, and silently sat down opposite her. She looked up, and on her face, I saw not remorse, not pain, but fear. She slowly looked at the photos, then at me, and some kind of cold resolve flashed in her eyes. "David," she said quietly, I don't know what to say." "I'm not asking you to say anything," I replied, and my voice trembled. "I just want you to look me in the eyes and tell me the truth. Do you love me?" She was silent. Her gaze was fixed on the photos. It seemed to me that she was trying to find the words, but couldn't. I waited, and in my head, one thought, one terrible guess that I didn't want to accept, was already spinning. I don't love you, David," she finally whispered. "I never did. I married you for the money, for the stability. I wanted to have a house, children. I wanted to be like everyone else." Her words, like ice water, poured over me from head to toe. I couldn't believe my ears. All these 20 years, all our happy moments, our conversations, our embraces, was it all a lie? I couldn't breathe. "And so," I asked, my voice almost inaudible, "all these years, you were just pretending?" "Yes," she replied, and her voice became firmer. "Yes, David. I was pretending. I was living a double life. I was seeing another man. He loves me, and I love him. I can't live this lie anymore. I'm leaving." She stood up and went to the bedroom to pack her things. I remained sitting in the living room, holding the photos. I couldn't feel anything but devastation. I was broken. After she left, our house turned into an empty box. Elizabeth took with her not only her things, but a part of my soul. I couldn't sleep, eat, or work. I walked around the house like a ghost, and every corner reminded me of her lies, of our happy past, as I had thought it was. The children, Matthew and Sophia, were confused. They didn't understand why their mother had left, and I didn't know how to explain it to them. I couldn't tell them that their mother hadn't loved me, that she had betrayed us. One day, as I was sitting in the living room, I heard Sophia talking to someone on the phone. I didn't want to eavesdrop, but her words made me stop. "I know you know her," she was saying. "I know you know why she left. I know you all knew." I realized she was talking to one of our mutual friends, and then it hit me. They all knew. All our friends, with whom we had spent so many years, knew about Elizabeth's double life, and they kept silent. They looked me in the eyes, smiled, and knew that my wife was betraying me. It was another blow. I felt not just betrayed, but humiliated, ridiculed. I was a laughingstock in the eyes of everyone around me. I couldn't stay in that house anymore. I packed up the children and drove to my mother's. I wanted them to be safe, to not see my grief. My mother, who had always supported me, didn't ask any unnecessary questions. She just hugged me and silently gave me strength. In her house, I was finally able to collect myself a little, to gather my thoughts. I started to analyze everything that had happened. I remembered the times Elizabeth stayed late at work, her strange excuses. I remembered how she was always too kind to one of our mutual friends, Thomas. I never suspected him. He was my best friend, Sophia's godfather. I couldn't believe he could betray me. But now, when everything fell into place, I realized that the man in the photos, the elegant man who had been with her at the school, was Thomas. My world finally collapsed completely. Not only my wife, but also my best friend, my brother, had betrayed me. My heart was shattered into a million pieces, and I didn't know how to put them back together. I was left alone, with 2 children on my hands, with a torn soul. Years passed. Years filled with pain, bitterness, but also with persistent work on myself. Elizabeth's departure and Thomas's betrayal became for me not only the most terrible trial, but also the most powerful push. I threw myself into my work. The field of engineering, in which I had always been good, became my salvation. My children, Matthew and Sophia, became my purpose, my main motivation. I wanted them to have everything that I was deprived of in my time. I wanted them to never know want, to have a bright future. I founded my own company. I worked day and night, not sparing myself. I invested all my strength, all my knowledge, all my soul into my business, and success was not long in coming. My company became one of the leading in its industry. I became a rich, very rich man. I bought the children a new house, enrolled them in the best schools. I learned to live without Elizabeth, learned to love myself. One day, as I was sitting in my office signing some documents, my secretary announced that a woman had come to see me. I looked up and saw her, Elizabeth. She looked different. Her face was gaunt, and there was some kind of confusion in her eyes. She stood before me, like a stranger. "David," she said quietly, "I came to talk." I couldn't say anything back. I just looked at her, trying to find the Elizabeth I had once loved. But she wasn't there. She had disappeared, and in her place was a completely different woman. "I found out you've become very successful," she continued. "I saw you in a magazine, and I realized I had made the biggest mistake of my life." Her words, like a slap, made me snap out of it. "A mistake?" I asked quietly. "You call what you did a mistake." "I love you, David," she said, and tears appeared in her eyes. "I always have. I was stupid. I was young." I got up from my desk and walked over to the window. I looked at the city I had built, at the life I had created, and I realized that everything she was saying was a lie. "Elizabeth," I said, without turning around. "Leave." She didn't move. I felt her looking at my back, and I knew she was waiting for some kind of reaction, some kind of words. But I couldn't say anything to her. I had nothing to say to her. "I thought you would want to come back to me," she whispered. "I thought we could start all over again." I turned around and looked her in the eyes. I saw not love in them, but greed, not remorse, but regret for what she had lost. "It's too late, Elizabeth," I said. "Too late. You betrayed me. You betrayed our children. You left us when we were having a hard time. You left for another man, and when you found out I got rich, you decided to come back. But I'm not the David you knew. I am no longer the person who can be deceived." She stood and looked at me, and in her eyes, I saw hatred flare up. She understood that I would not return, that I would not forgive her, that I would not give her a second chance. She turned and left. I watched her go, and I felt a sense of peace in my soul. Finally, I was no longer a victim. I was free. I was happy. I was a father who had done everything, so that his children would live in a world where there was no place for betrayal and lies. This was the end, but it wasn't a defeat. It was a victory, my victory. Years had passed. I was no longer the broken man that Elizabeth had left and then tried to win back. I had become someone else entirely. I had built a new life, one that was strong and stable, with no room for betrayal or lies. And it was into this new life that Anna walked one day. She was a teacher at my children's school, where Matthew and Sophia attended, and I felt immediately that she was different. She was so kind and full of light that, for the first time in a long time, I felt at peace. She loved me and my children as her own, and laughter, warmth, and love filled my home once more. My children, who had suffered for so long after their mother left, finally found stability and care. We became a real family. I no longer feared that it would all turn out to be a lie, because all I saw in her eyes was sincerity. As for Elizabeth, I found out about her fate by chance from mutual acquaintances who hadn't stopped talking to me. After Thomas left her, she got married a second time to some wealthy businessman. But that marriage was also unhappy. She left him when he went bankrupt, never finding what she was looking for. She was still chasing money and luxury, but couldn't seem to find real happiness. She was living alone in a small rented apartment, working a job she hated, and, as I was told, often reminisced about our home and our children. I knew she regretted it, but it was too late. I was no longer a victim. I was free. I was happy. I was a father who had done everything to ensure his children lived in a world with no room for betrayal or lies. I had found my happiness, and it was genuine. I was no longer a ghost in my own home. I was David, and my life was beautiful.